we want to see an artist at a certain stage of their career before we'll probably take them on. So we want to see an artist selling out, a 200 capacity, venue in their hometown and have a demonstrably decent fan base contextually as well, assuming that they're at the start of their career, but we want to see them proactive online. They don't necessarily need a manager, but it helps.
Sound of Startups podcast is hosted by Taj, produced by Amplitude Ventures, your partner in early stage startups.
Hello, everyone. As always, I'm back with the new guest today. We have somebody who's very special. We really had a wonderful conversation whenever we met. He's essentially a booker, but not a very regular one. He has done beautiful work within his discipline, and he's based in the UK. And we have worked on a couple of things together, and I found it very interesting. So, without wasting any further time, I have Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, Sam. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Yes, I'm very well. Thanks for asking me to come onto the podcast. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so let's down to the action. Who is Sam?
I'm a booking agent based in Brighton in the UK. I have been an agent for around 10 years, and for the last 4 years, I've been with a fast-growing live agency called Midnight Mango, who are primarily based in the UK, but we also have agents in Europe, even the Middle East, and it's been a really exciting kind of period of time to be with the company. I'm enjoying my work. It's good.
You've always been in the UK, or you have migrated to somewhere and settled in the UK?
No, I'm from the UK, yeah. The area of the UK I live in is great. Brighton is a vibrant place. A lot of people in the industry will know about it because of the Great Escape Festival. So I'm UK born and bred.
Okay, so how is the Brighton music scene? How's the situation there? Is it a part of the city culture, or that you got affected to it?
In Brighton specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Brighton punches above its weight, I'd say, musically. It's on a lot of kind of high-profile tour posters for a comparatively low population compared to some of the more metropolis parts of the UK. And I'm not sure why. It's always been a bit of a cultural centre. In May, there are 4 different festivals that go on at the same time. So, it's a vibrant scene. We probably need more big venues in terms of capacities. I've actually been involved in another life in trying to revive older venues here to stop the inevitable developers coming in, turning them into flats, which sadly has happened in 2 projects I was involved with here. So despite that, it's a vibrant scene for sure.
How did your music journey started in the city?
Well, I started off. My family. My dad was a rave promoter in the second summer of love, as it's called in the UK, kind of early 90s, late 80s. So I've kind of always been around festivals, events, parties, but I didn't kind of jump into that scene. I went to university. I studied a degree, not in music, in sociology. And after that, I wanted to kind of find my own path. My parents separated, and my mum and my stepdad listened to lots of different music outside of drum and bass and rave and acid house and stuff. They listened to a lot of world music and reggae, and so that kind of, I think, rubbed off from me, and I to this day work with a lot of world music and global artists. So I was finding my way, and I worked with my first job in music was with an arts education charity based here in Brighton, who brought primarily West African Indigenous artists to perform and also teach here. So, for example, a Ghanaian drumming group would come and tour and teach for a long time, for like 6 months. And the formula there would be I'd book them a festival slot or an arts centre or cultural centre slot at the weekend. And then they would work in the local area with schools doing drumming and dance workshops. And through that, I started to get connections with not just the schools, but also the kind of the umbrella music education organisations that manage a lot of that and sometimes have funding for that. And so that ballooned to working with other music acts, but also that had strong education, music and dance education aspects to what they did. Like I work with a brass band, I work with a steel pan, Caribbean bands, and they all have, this aspect of their kind of professional output. Ideally, almost all my work is done at that point, and maybe a little bit after as well. But on the night, I can be there and be in the moment, which is good. I enjoy that.
You said the artist is your client, and I'm happy because somebody is preferring artists as a client at least. So, how do you identify that which are the artists that you want to work at, and what are the things when you look an artist when you sign them as an agent?
Yeah. So to an extent, so I have around 20 agent colleagues that I work with, who some of which are freelance with the company, and some of them are part of the core team. But we all do have a nuanced kind of theme to the roster. Some are quite focused on folk, some are more roots, some are more Americana, some have a bit of punk, some are rock and roll, some are working in some interesting areas that are growing, like ecstatic dance. So there's a broad range. So obviously that's going to be one of your first considerations. I think often, this is probably a standard agent answer, but a lot of the times recommendations for artists will come from artists, so from managers or labels that we already have strong relationships with. We know that we work well together on other projects, so we're more inclined to look at the other aspects of things that they bring to us as well. So that's often the route too. Showcasing, we met at Tala Music Week. There's plenty of that's the whole point why a lot of artists will go to showcases to try and get an agent. So that is an aspect of it. It's probably less common that you go to a conference and be like, definitely, but it certainly happens. I think we want to see an artist at a certain stage of their career before we'll probably take them on. I think the ability to put on sell a decent amount of tickets. And when I say decent amount, we work with a lot of grassroots venues, 200 to 400 capacity, kind of that size. We work with 5,000 capacity venues as well. But I would say a lot of our work is in kind of grassroots. So we want to see an artist selling out, a 200 capacity, venue in their hometown and have a demonstrably decent fan base, contextually as well. Certainly that they're at the start of their career, but we want to see them proactive online. They don't necessarily need a manager, but it helps. I think this is also comes down to the stage of career that an artist is at. If we're talking about an artist that's been around for a long amount of time, we do want to see a decent team in place. We do want to see a label at least, or manager, or one of the two. But for an emerging artist, we just need to see that they are ready for that next step, because an agent takes a cut. Is it appropriate for an emerging artist to have a chunk of their income taken away so early? Possibly not. Sometimes it's at the point at which we can add value. I think that's very important. It's not just get an agent, definitely full stop all the time. It's about, will an agent bring value to my live career? Will they earn the commission that they're taking and then increase it, which is the entire point. So a pretty wide array of factors that go into the decision. Yeah.
Interesting. So I just want to understand what's the role of the label and managers to decide how artist career will grow. And you're
Yeah.
an agent, and then
You've probably heard it mentioned or talked about quite a lot that I'd certainly see the artist as like the CEO of their business. They are at the center, and an agent is one member of that team. As from the agent side, we like to look at an artist that is managing their team well. Again, this isn't always appropriate if they're emerging, but if they're quite established, we want to see a wider macro plan. We want to see a plan for their next release. We want to see where management are thinking of expanding to in terms of different territories. So now it's not always the case that there has to be a manager and sometimes even a label for that decision making to be happening and to be proactive. But usually it means if those people are present, that those things, if they're earning their money, at least those things are happening. And it just gives us the confidence to know that it's a sustainable investment in our time, because that's what it comes down to as an agent. Our time is our currency, really. We're not, in terms of investment, unlike a label or maybe even often a manager, we're not putting money into this project, but we are investing our time. And as rosters grow, that time becomes pretty important. So, we want to know that time's being well spent, because it's our main commodity. But to answer your question, that's what we'd like. That's what gives us confidence, is seeing that wider team, and it means that the right decisions are hopefully being made.
Interesting. So there is an artist, then you have agent, then you have managers, then you have label, and then is there any more party which decides the career of?
So if there's a release upcoming or there's a tour upcoming, some artists may invest in some PR. They may invest in a PR firm. They may increasingly, we're seeing much more technically able artists or artist managers able to run their own advertising campaigns and press campaigns as well. From simple outreach to radio or internet media, to direct advertising online, social advertisement. The ability, I think, for artists to take charge of some of their own show advertising, even to the extent where we can, artists will ask us to approach the promoters and say, look, we can spend some of your budget on your promotion. We can work that out from the costs. Here's our track record of improving sales doing this. Promoters, they're happy with that. They're often really amenable to that, because it shows proactivity, and that money's there to be spent on promotion anyway. Obviously, it goes other ways. Sometimes promoters will just simply take control of the artist's socials, and they'll do it themselves. But increasingly, we're seeing really good results from artists being really plugged into their own networks, and not just in terms of selling tickets, but also increasing their fan base. There's a direct correlation between artists that are good at managing their own social advertising and those that are really across increasing their fan base, getting emails for those precious mailing lists. So yeah, that's another aspect of the team that we like to see either being done by the artist or being done by somebody else involved here.
What is the most difficult part of your part of being an agent?
Well, we're operating in a pretty difficult time, to be honest. I mean, as an agency, we are an independent agency. We are, we're a fairly young agency. We're growing a lot. We had, five team members before COVID. We're now a team of 25 in total. So we've grown a lot. I mean, I can go more into the mechanism of that a little bit later on if you like. But to answer your question about the challenges, so I mentioned we're a growing agency because we work with a lot of grassroots, smaller venues, and those venues and those festivals as well are really under pressure. You know, last year in the UK, we lost 125 music venues. Last year in the UK, we lost 40 festivals, and that has an impact for our artists. Our artists, they look at their summer calendars and they're seeing less festival slots there than they used to. They ask us why, and we can tell them why, because of the high pressure situations that those venues and festivals faced, the rising costs that have tanked them, sadly. There's also festivals that have taken a year off rather than go bankrupt. And those are festivals where we'd hope to place a lot of our artists. I mean, Glastonbury has quite a big effect actually. So next year is a fallow year for Glastonbury. A lot of festivals have taken this year off, and they'll be coming back next year when the black hole that is Glastonbury Festival isn't sucking quite as much of the audience base, the staffing, the tech available in the country. I mean, I love Glastonbury. I grew up near Glastonbury. I love the place. But just on what's a real politic aspect of it, it has a really big effect on the wider kind of festival market. So to answer your question, one of the hardest bits is managing artists' expectations about their bookings in a pretty dicey landscape. I mean, there's improvements. There's been some legislation. Well, it's not legislation. There have been recommendations by the Culture and Sports Committee here in the UK for a stadium tour levy, because ironically, whilst all of these challenges are facing smaller venues, stadium tours and arena tours are doing better than ever, and that's where the money is. So there's now a stadium tour levy, which is £1 of every ticket goes towards the Music Venue Trust, who can distribute that towards grassroots venues and festivals. It's a start. It's not legislation, like I say. It is a recommendation. So we'd like to see maybe a little bit more teeth to that. But there's been some high profile uptake to that. I mean, Coldplay have signed up to that. Actually, I think they've gone a step further, and they dedicated 10% of their ticketing income to profit, I imagine, to the Music Venue Trust. Not quite that much paid, probably. Ed Sheeran signed up to it. Sam Fender. There's been some high profile artists, but of course, they are doing that. There's good press with that, of course. So it's pretty self-serving. I mean, but it's happening. So it's one of those ones. What's altruism really? So we're seeing some response. But the ball is very much in the music industry court now, I think, to really push that forward and start to protect these tributaries of other live careers that are building into the stars of tomorrow. They're important because if you cut those off, it has a real knock-on effect. So yeah, a long-winded answer to at the moment it is hard to kind of get enough work for the artists on the roster. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. Some of the artists we work with are doing very well. Some of the venues are still, new venues are opening as well. So it's not completely awful, but it's challenging. It is challenging.
So, can you tell us just a little bit about your company where you work?
Yeah,
Cool. What do you guys do? How does it typically operate? Where in the whole ecosystem you are positioned, and what is the size of your company, and which part of the industry you fit in within the organization?
So as I briefly mentioned earlier on, pre-COVID, the company was based in an office near Glastonbury here in the UK, and when the pandemic hit and the office closed, the office didn't reopen, and everybody continued working remotely. And what this enabled the company to do was to shift their approach a little bit as an agency to wanting to work with great agents, because great agents, by definition, will be working with great artists. So it's fine that the approach became, how can we work with some great agents out there that are working freelance, that we can attract to the company, and we can join forces. It can be a mutually beneficial relationship, and that's how I joined. I'd been a freelance agent for perhaps kind of 5-6 years, and that's quite hard going as a freelancer. It's quite isolating, and completely self-taught as well. I wasn't in a position where I'd worked for a major agency or even an independent agency and then gone, I'll do it myself. I'd gone straight to doing it myself. So there's quite a learning curve there. But what the company did to set up what we call our freelancer platform is they got a little bit of funding from the Cultural Recovery Fund post-COVID to turn that into quite a structured arrangement whereby I joined alongside 2 other freelance agents, and there was a little bit of money to kind of set us up while we were learning systems of the company, and also taking what's basically a course with our CEO, who has written a syllabus on being an agent. And that is actually available on our website, free of charge. Anybody can look at that, and it's very much it's demystifying some of the things that an agent does, some of the ways that they operate, the deals that they like to use, and that are appropriate, when they're appropriate in different situations, tax on show deals, how to make the most out of conferences. It's all there. You just have to sign up to you just have to put in an email, but it's there. So we were doing this course, and it was a good 6 months long. We'd meet once a week, and we'd have a subject. And for somebody who was completely self-taught, a lot of it I knew, a lot of it I did not know, and so it was a structured thing, so I was one of the first kind of cohorts, if you like. We've been doing this now for some time, and that's how the agency has grown to having around 20 agents that are part of the company. Most of those are still freelance. Some, like myself, started as freelance and are now part of the core agent team. We work a lot with small-scale promoters as well. People who will maybe do 12 shows, would do a show a month, 12 shows a year, and that can actually be, if you have enough of those on a tour, some of these shows can actually be quite profitable for the artists we work with. But the promoters themselves, they're doing it for the love of it. They're doing it because they have a community, and often those shows can be very personal. The artists get a lot of fans from those types of shows because they're quite up close and personal in that sense.
Let me ask you, if somebody wants to be the agent, how they can become agent? Obviously, they need to go to your website and do this.
Yeah.
But how would Sam
often,
recommend somebody to do it?
Often agents will just fall into being an agent. We have a lot of professional musicians who are agents, who they started off booking their own band. Then friends who were in bands said, God, you're quite good at that. Can you book us some shows as well? So that is a very common pathway. But yeah, I think it's I think it's going with the flow in that sense. If you're finding yourself being professionally going in that direction, then it can be, it can be a very rewarding and it can be a decent living. But yeah, if you've been an agent for a while and you feel like having access to a big team that you can bounce ideas off of, a big address book, and some good software, then yeah, check out the website. because I don't know of another agency that does it in that way, basically. So it's an interesting way, and it's a great way to build a really knowledgeable team across different genres, different territories.
What is the one piece of advice would you like to give to the people who are thinking of planning to become an agent or on their journey to be an agent?
I would say love the music that you're working with when you begin, definitely. I mean, there's that, I think as you go on, sometimes you'll be pulled in different directions and you'll be working with sometimes music that isn't like exactly what you'd always listen to. But I think to begin with, I think it's quite important to be really into the music. Go to lots of shows, try and get to, sometimes conferences are expensive, but try and get to a few, try and talk to people. That can be hard if you're more introverted, but it pays dividends and you feel connected. For a long time, I didn't do that. And since joining the company I'm with, I'm doing that a lot more, and it leads to things like this, and it grows your confidence in your own abilities and contributes towards your abilities. I think be open to new things as well. Not just in terms of genre, but in terms of going to places, meeting people. Get yourself out there.
Perfect. Sam, it was great to have you today.
Thank you.
What a wonderful conversation.
I enjoyed it. Thanks so much for the invite.
I wish you best of luck for you and your agency, and we hope to see you soon then.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, man.